Idle games. It's a genre of games that I've tried a few times, but typically wind up dropping fairly quickly. Trying to keep up with these games on mobile or console always wound up feeling like a bit of a waste of time after a while. I hadn't really tried one out on the PC until the game that I'll be looking at today, NGU Idle. And the NGU stands for numbers going up. Is NGU Idle a waste of time, or does an idle game on PC hit a little different? Let's take a closer look at the game and find out my thoughts on it. NGU Idle is an idle game developed by 4G. It was released in 2019 on the PC. It's a free-to-play game that doesn't have an official rating, but I would probably stick it as at least a T rating due to the language and some of the humor of the game. In complete transparency, I haven't fully completed this game. I have finished all of the bosses in normal mode, but there are 2 more higher difficulties to go through before completing the game. Even so, I'm clocked in at 2,930 hours, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to complete the full game if it took that long just to get through the easiest difficulty. I also feel like I've been playing it long enough that I have a pretty good grasp of the game and what I think about it at this point. In terms of story, there just isn't much of a story to NGU Idle. You're basically fighting your way through a series of bosses in some kind of loose story where you're, going through different locations and fighting different bosses. And most of these bosses are some sort of pop culture reference from sources like Mega Man, Half-Life, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Rick and Morty, and many others. While this story is not really great to start with, it hits a major problem as on normal. Once you hit boss 151, there are no more story bosses. You have to beat all of the 301 bosses to get to evil difficulty, which again has the story stop at some point where the bosses are just question marks and you don't have any more story after that. It just makes for a lot of waiting between certain sections, which doesn't really feel great. As I said, there isn't much to the story, so it's not like you're missing out on a lot, but if you are enjoying the middle school style humor and the pop culture references from the various bosses that you face, you're going to be out of luck for a while at certain times, at least to find new ones. Sure, you'll be repeating through the whole cycle quite a little bit, but you're not going to see any new ones and be like, oh, that's kind of a cool reference after a certain period of time for a long time after that. Idle games are a strange mix. Gameplay isn't necessarily super compelling, but it can be strangely addictive. NGU Idle is very much in that boat. You start the game off with very limited abilities. At the start, you have only one resource, energy, and you have only one place that you can use it, and that's basic training, and that's to gain attack and defense that will help you defeat bosses early on. As you progress in the game, you unlock all kinds of other mechanics in order to gain power. There is an adventure mode, which is described kind of as a game inside of the game. As you defeat bosses, you'll unlock certain zones where you can fight some of these bosses as enemies that will drop loot and money. There are also other systems that allow you to use your energy or later magic, which winds up being unlocked after beating a certain number of bosses, to gain a variety of stats. And that's the interesting thing about NGU Idle. There are so many systems to unlock that it creates quite a deep experience for an idle game. Now, I do need to stress the point that this is for an idle game. That's not to say that there aren't times where you'll need to take a more active hand while playing, but overall, this will be an experience to have on in the background for a while, checking on it every so often to see if you can progress any more. The thing I've had to take a more active hand in have been the challenges that are in the game. There are many different challenges that will give you certain limitations and make you reach a certain boss. It may be limiting your time to 24 hours or disabling a certain upgrade system. These can require a more active use of the systems like rebirthing, which starts you back at the first boss, but gives you a certain multiplier so that you can progress in your stats quicker using that multiplier. And all of this really also depends on how your playstyle is and how you're wanting to approach a game like NGU Idle. I think there are people who take a much more active approach to playing a game like this, but I don't really find the gameplay compelling enough to really do that. As a little distraction here and there, I enjoy it quite a bit, but not really as something more than that. If you like to see bars progressing, then you'll love the art of NGU Idle. That's a bit of a joke, but there are a lot of progress bars in this game and not a lot of art. The art that's here is mainly for the bosses you fight in the game and the equipment in the game, but don't be expecting a lot from the art here. They're okay and can be kind of humorous at times, but they're not going to blow anyone away. On the sound front, there is absolutely no sound in the game, so there's really nothing to speak of here. It is a fitting choice for a game that may always be on in the background, so I can't knock that too much, but there is also the reality that there is absolutely no sound design that's gone into this game at all. While I'm not an expert on idle games, it feels like a strange genre. A game that can be strangely enthralling, while at the same time doesn't really offer a lot of what a traditional game would. There is no compelling story, and gameplay is not particularly compelling either, but it contains a very straightforward sense of progression. You set up your systems and watch the numbers go up. You come back later and they're even higher. There is just something satisfying about that. NGU Idle in particular is a strange mix though. While on the surface it seems pretty bare bones with a fairly boring interface, limited art, and no sound at all, at the same time there are so many systems to unlock over the course of the game, which makes for a deeper experience than you might have expected. Even with that unexpected depth, I can probably only really rate NGU Idle a 6 out of 10. I feel like there are other idle games that have a better sense of presentation, even if they maybe don't have so many unlockables and systems to discover. It's still enjoyable to mess around with, and I have found it entertaining to play, but some strange choices in structure have made it felt like it drags a bit at times. While I have enjoyed it to a point, I'm not sure if I'll have the endurance to go through the other 2 difficulty levels when I've already idled around 3,000 hours in the game up till now. It's been nice to have running in the background, but I'm also very aware of its shortcomings.